If you live in Ontario, you know the blue box. It's a staple of our kitchens, our curbs, and let's be honest, the occasional household argument over whether that peanut butter jar lid should stay on or come off.
That's so true.
Well, stop arguing because the rules are about to change in a really big province-wide way.
They absolutely are. We're diving deep today into what our sources are calling the biggest overhaul of Ontario's recycling system in, well, decades. This isn't just a small tweak.
No.
This is a fundamental structural transformation of who pays for and who actually manages the entire recycling process.
Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're going to unpack this transition to something called Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR. We need to clarify what it means for finances, but I think most importantly, we're going to walk you through the new, exact, standardized rules for how you prepare your recycling every week.
And the core of this change is really about shifting the burden. For years, the financial and operational weight of the blue box has been on municipalities, on local communities.
Right, on our property taxes.
Exactly. Under EPR, that responsibility and the cost, it moves entirely to the organizations that produce the packaging, the paper, and all those packaging-like products in the first place.
And this isn't some far-off policy. Our notes show this transition has been happening for a little while and is hitting its final deadline very, very soon.
That's right.
Okay, so let's unpack that structural shift. Let's follow the money first.
So the foundation for all this is the June 2021 Blue Box Regulation. And extended producer responsibility, it really just means making the companies that introduce products to the market responsible for managing them at the end of their life.
It's an accountability shift.
It's a fundamental change in accountability, yes.
So if the municipalities are stepping back, who's actually in charge now? Who's coordinating this massive province-wide system?
That management role falls to what are known as producer responsibility organizations, or PROs. The main one, the one responsible for building and managing this new common collection system, is an organization called Circular Materials.
Okay, Circular Materials.
They're the ones implementing the new standards and, making sure the system runs the same way from Windsor to Ottawa.
That immediately makes me think about cost. Shifting financial responsibility can sometimes just mean the cost gets passed on to us, the consumer, through higher prices.
Yeah.
But the sources seem to imply this is a huge win for local government budgets.
This is where it gets really interesting. The enhanced EPR system is actually projected to save communities across Ontario more than $200 million annually. That's money that municipalities were spending on collection, on processing. I mean, this financial relief for local budgets is massive.
$200 million. That's a staggering relief for taxpayers. Now let's talk timeline. You said it's been phasing in, but when is the absolute deadline? When is every single community in Ontario on this new system?
The 3-year transition period, which started back in July 2023, is almost over. The entire process will be fully complete, and the new standardized system will be operational everywhere on January 1st, 2026.
That is right around the corner.
After that date, the blue box is entirely the producer's responsibility.
Let's pause on that, though. The implication of that financial shift. If the producers, the companies making the toothpaste, the cereal boxes, the takeout containers, if they are now paying for the entire collection and recycling process, does that change how they design the product in the first place?
It absolutely does. And that's the key structural point that goes way beyond just cost savings. When a producer takes on the financial risk for the end-of-life management of their product, they suddenly have this powerful incentive to innovate. They're motivated to design packaging that is, lighter, uses less material, and crucially, is easier and cheaper to process into a new recycled product. It just drives the whole market toward efficiency.
So the complexity of recycling becomes the producer's problem and hopefully their inspiration.
That's the circular economy in action.
Right. But for us, for the residents, the most important part is knowing how to sort our materials correctly. We have to maximize the potential here. And that relies entirely on us getting the preparation rules right.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The system can only process what we deliver to it correctly. I mean, compliance at the bin level determines the quality of the recycled material, which in turn determines its value in the supply chain.
Okay, let's start with paper products. Cardboard is the big one. We all know we have to flatten it, but now there's a new rule about size that honestly feels like it's going to cause some confusion.
You're touching on a really critical detail, and yes, it is very specific. Cardboard boxes must be flattened, and they can be no larger than 60 by 60 centimeters.
Wait, 60 by 60 centimeters. So if I have a big moving box, I have to What, cut it down?
You need to cut it down to meet that dimension, yes.
Why that size? Is that based on the sorting machinery or something?
It is. It's all about automation and maximizing throughput. The new system relies heavily on automated sorting equipment, and boxes larger than that can jam the lines or get misdirected.
So they just end up as waste instead of being recycled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that 60 by 60 rule is a standard designed for system efficiency. It's for the robots, basically.
Okay, the rule is for the robots. I can remember that. What about smaller stuffed boxboard, like cereal boxes, egg cartons, paper towel rolls?
Those also must be flattened and empty. Tissue boxes, same thing. For loose paper, we're talking about any color paper, notepads, flyers, magazines, greeting cards, all accepted.
Okay.
But a key preparation note here, you need to remove any rope handles from bags, separate paper from any plastic bags used to cover it, and take off elastic bands. Basically, paper just needs to be paper.
And I see a specific exclusion here that I think trips a lot of people up because it feels like paper.
Yeah.
We should not include soft or hard-covered books or novels.
That is correct. Books should be donated or disposed of some other way. They're explicitly excluded from the blue box. And here's the other really specific paper rule that often gets missed. Shredded paper.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just throw it in loose. To make sure it actually gets recycled and doesn't just contaminate everything else, it must be placed in a tied, clear plastic bag.
That is incredibly specific. A clear plastic bag tied shut. That is a compliance hurdle a lot of people might miss. Okay, switching gears. Let's go to the material that causes the most confusion in my house. Plastics and glass. We have to talk about lids on versus lids off.
This is a highly precise rule, and it really depends on the material's composition and how it gets processed later on.
So where do we absolutely need to keep the lids on?
Keep the lids on hard plastic containers, so like laundry detergent, shampoo, plastic beverage bottles. You also keep the lids on plastic tubs and packaging, think yogurt, peanut butter, most food tubs.
Right.
This also applies to tubes like toothpaste or hand cream, and even cartons for milk, juice, or soup. And if an aerosol container is the acceptable kind, the lid stays on that too.
So the general rule for plastic seems to be if it's securely attached, just leave it on. But where do we need to remove the lids off of?
Primarily, glass containers, jars, and bottles lids off. The other key category where lids come off is paper laminate containers.
So like ice cream containers and those hot or cold beverage cups.
These-
That difference must be because of how glass and paper are recycled versus how rigid plastics are processed. The takeaway seems to be, if it's glass, the lid comes off.
That's it. When glass is crushed for sorting, those small metal or plastic lids can contaminate the entire batch, which lowers its quality. It's just better to remove them and recycle them separately.
Got it. Now, for some specialized materials that are often tricky, foam packaging like meat trays and takeout containers is now accepted, which is a big change from the old system.
It's a huge enhancement, but with foam, preparation is vital. If you're recycling a meat tray, you have to remove the film wrap and, importantly, that absorbent pad completely.
Then rinse it, I assume.
It needs to be empty and free from food residue.
Yeah.
A good rule of thumb is if your recycling bin smells like last night's dinner, you've probably failed a preparation step.
Good rule.
Right.
And for aluminum foil and pie plates,
Yeah.
we can't just toss them in flat, can we?
Absolutely not. Little flat pieces just get lost in the machinery. You have to empty them and then thoroughly ball up the foil, pie plates, or baking trays so they form a solid, fist-sized ball.
And that helps the sorting machines identify it as metal.
It ensures they're properly identified and processed in the metal stream, yeah.
Now, aerosols are listed, but I noticed something a bit strange in my notes. There's sort of asterisk next to them, something about a flammability symbol exception. That sounds like a recipe for confusion.
It's a critical safety distinction. In general, aerosols with toxic, corrosive, or flammable symbols are not accepted because any residual material is a hazard.
To the workers and the equipment.
Exactly. However, the system makes some specific common sense exceptions. You can recycle things like cooking oil sprays, hairsprays, cosmetics, and products designed for use on your hair or skin, even if they have a caution symbol.
Okay, that makes sense.
They just have to be empty, of course, and have their lids on.
That level of detail really shows how specific this new system is. Now, before we move on, there's one very consistent exclusion that crosses almost every container category I'm looking at.
Yes.
Cartons, hard plastic, metal, glass, they all have the same strict rule.
And what's interesting here is that the reason is purely administrative. In almost every single container category, the sources explicitly state do not include alcoholic beverage containers.
Right.
And that's because those containers are already managed under Ontario's separate deposit return system. If you put them in the blue box, you're just diverting material from the correct stream.
That's a perfect example of standardization. Just follow the rules of the system they belong to. Okay, now that we've covered the practical stuff, let's talk about the why. Why does the systemic shift to EPR matter so much beyond the $200 million in savings?
This is the foundation of the circular economy here. The environmental goal is the entire engine driving this change. When we follow these detailed rules, our flattened cardboard, our balled-up aluminum, the materials are collected and sorted so they can be used again and again.
And that reduces the need for new materials.
It drastically reduces the need to mine new resources or produce virgin materials, which helps protect the environment and conserve our natural resources. It's that simple.
And I think the scope of what's now accepted under this EPR system really underlines that ambition. We're talking about items that used to be a huge headache.
Absolutely. The breadth of materials now included is massive. I think the most noticeable change for residents will be the inclusion of flexible plastic packaging in the common collection system.
So what does that actually mean? What is flexible plastic packaging?
We're talking about chip bags, snack wrappers, those noisy cereal liner bags, bubble wrap.
Even coffee bags.
Even coffee bags. All of that is now included, which previously was just garbage. This is a huge step forward.
That completely changes how I view the contents of my garbage can.
It does. And the reason they're included now is tied directly back to the EPR model. Because producers now own the cost, they have to find solutions for even the most difficult materials they put on the market.
It seems like circular materials also understands that long-term success isn't just about infrastructure. It's about changing behavior.
They do. The sources mention their commitment to youth education through partnerships with groups like Earth Rangers and Eco Schools Canada. It shows an understanding that the system's effectiveness really relies on having informed participants.
Starting them early.
Exactly.
Okay, so to bring it all back home for everyone listening, let's just recap the key actionable takeaways for those of us standing over the blue box.
The shift to extended producer responsibility is nearly complete. By January 1st, 2026, the whole system will be fully operational, saving communities a massive amount of money and standardizing the process across the province.
And standardization means we all have to follow those specific preparation rules. So flatten your cardboard to that 60 by 60 centimeter size.
Make sure all your shredded paper is safely in a tied, clear plastic bag.
And religiously follow those specific lids on and lids off rules, especially taking lids off glass and those paper laminate containers.
And remember that one crucial administrative rule: keep alcoholic beverage containers separate. Handle them through the deposit return program. This new system makes it easier to recycle more than ever, but our individual preparation is the final necessary step.
This shift really does change how we perceive waste, both financially and practically. The standardization is powerful. Now, the final provocative thought for you to consider as you sort your next batch of recycling. How does the fact that producers are now financially responsible for materials like chip bags and bubble wrap change your perception of waste in your own home? And what does this broader producer responsibility imply for the future of product design and packaging innovation in Ontario?
It forces innovation, something to mull over until our next deep dive.